I love lupins. They're one of the things that I first started to grow when I was a kid because they're really easy to grow from seed and you get a really big flower that's a bit different, isn't it? It's really exciting. So they come in a range of different colours. They come from this beautiful rich pink and red through to the lovely blues and also whites and yellows. I think personally my favourites are these misty blues because they're really gorgeous and bi-coloured really if you look at them, because they've got a slightly yellow centre and then the bottom pair of petals, which is called the keel at the bottom, is this beautiful blue colour. They've been bred for a long time. There was a man called Russell who was a real keen breeder of Russell lupins, and you can find packets of Russell lupin seed to sow and grow yourself. They're very, very easy care plants. They like a full sun position, lots and lots of light, in decent soil, not very, very thin sandy soil or very heavy soil, but somewhere in between. And then they'll flower on and on through from about May time through to sometimes September. You'll get a second flush of flowers. Once the flowers have finished, about 2/3 of the way up the spike, you'll start to see pods of seed beginning to form, and that's the time really when you either leave them to set seed or you cut the whole flower spike right back down to the base so that you get new shoots that should encourage a second flush of flowers. But they really are a supremely easy plant to grow. Now lupins are really easy to grow from seed. In this seed packet you'll find that the seeds are like small peas. They are in the pea family, and that means that they're nice and big, easy to handle, and they germinate really quickly. So much so that in just about 6 months from sowing I've got some quite large plants that are potted up, ready to grow on for another 6 months, and they'll be ready to plant out next year and make flowering size plants really quickly. So I've filled up this tray with some small pots that I've reused, recycled from some plants that I've bought in the past. I've filled them with a peat-free compost quite loosely. I haven't stabbed my fingers in them to really make the compost too over compacted. I've just loosely filled it and then tapped that on the bench just to settle that compost down, to consolidate it, and then that's ready to sow. Now the seeds, as I say, are quite large. I've already opened the packet here. They always come with a foil inner packet that you need to lever open, and once you've used this packet you can leave any spare seeds in it and just fold over that foil edge just to keep the seeds fresh for next time you use it. There's a lot of seeds in here, and I'm only going to put 2 seeds into each of these individual little pots. So tap them out into your hand. You can see how big they are. They're really nice size, and that means that you can use your thumb and forefinger to pick them up individually or in pairs, and then just drop 1, 2 on the surface of the compost. 1, 2, all the way along. And they're such big seeds that they're really good ones for sowing with children as well, because they can use their little fingers to sow these really easily. If you get 3 in the pot, don't worry. The idea is that you've got 1 in the pot that will grow into the plant, and then you've got a spare in there as well. So I'm just going to finish these off. And then when you've done that, put the rest of the spare seeds back into the packet and fold the top over, and then put a little bit of compost on the top of each pot. So you can see where we've consolidated the compost down, it's knocked the compost down lower in the pot, so we've got a bit of room to add a little bit, only a tiny little bit of extra on the top. If you found it easier, you can hold the compost between your hands and then rub together, and that will deliver the compost onto the surface of the pot. But I tend to do them individually by hand so I can make sure I'm not burying the seeds too deeply. And then knock off any excess just so that it's nice and level. Give the pots another tap, and then you're ready to take these away. Give them a splash of water, and these will start to germinate in about 3 to 4 months time. You'll see the first little signs in a month or 2, and then you'll get some nice strong plants in about 3 to 4 months time. Now, pest and disease wise, lupins don't really suffer from very much apart from one nasty fungal disease, which is called rust. And you'll find that the rust will go on the back of the leaves and then make little round marks on the top surface where the rust is feeding on the leaf and taking all the goodness out of it. The key thing with preventing rust is to plant them in a really sunny position so that they don't get too much moisture on their leaves, and also so that the sunny position allows the leaves to have time to dry off, and that will discourage the rust fungus. Far better than resorting to a spray to try and deal with it. They also get, now and again, they get bothered by aphids. As that flower spike is beginning to form earlier in the year, you may find clusters of green fly beginning to congregate there because it's a great free meal, but they're really easy to deal with. I just pull them off by hand and then go and pop them on the bird table for the blue tits to feast on. And after a while you'll find that the blue tits will find their way to the aphid infested blooms. Lupins are great for planting at the front of the border where you can really enjoy them, or even halfway back in a border where their height actually adds some gradation within other plants as well. But make sure they're not drenched in the foliage of other plants, because their leaves need to dry off between rain showers so they don't get those nasty fungal problems. But I'm going to plant this one right at the front of the border, and I've pre-dug the hole ready using a spade, and you can see that I've used the plant pot as my guide, offering up the plant pot while it's still in the pot to make sure that I've got the planting depth right. And you want to make sure that the plant is sitting at the same level as the surrounding soil. But if you've got not very much space in your border, it might be easier to find room for one of the smaller plants. So don't always go for a big pot full in one go. You might find it easier between all the other developing plants to make a smaller hole just to pop a small one in, one of the ones that you've grown from seed yourself, or you can buy young plants from the garden centre as well as these big ones. But I'm just going to plant my lovely blue one that I'm very excited about. Just going to put a little bit of water into the bottom of the planting hole. That's because that will encourage the roots to go down looking for that moisture that I've just put in the bottom of the hole. And then I'm going to knock the plant from the pot. Now I've pre-soaked this plant. You can see all those lovely roots at the bottom. Don't worry too much if you break some of them off to get the plant out of the pot. It's a really well-developed root system that's going to fly away in this position here. And then pop that into the planting hole. You'll see that the plant now sits a little bit low in that hole, but that's not a problem. I'm then going to add a little bit of this pelleted chicken manure to the soil, just one handful to the soil, mix it in a little bit, and then return the soil into the planting hole, making sure that you fill in the gap between the root ball and the hole that you've dug. So getting that soil with the chicken manure pellets pushed down around the roots of the plant, and you can still see that the plant is sitting a little bit low compared to the surrounding soil, and there's method in my madness that will become apparent in a minute. Just lose some of the excess soil in the rest of the border and make sure that you firm with your hands all the way around the edge of the plant. So what we're aiming to have is a little dish or a depression around the base of the plant, so that when it comes to me watering it in, which is really important, that depression will actually catch the water and stop it running away across the border. And you can puddle the plant in with plenty of moisture so that it washes the soil in around the roots of the plant, so that it gives it a really good start. When it comes to maintenance, lupins really like to be grown pretty much in their own little patch of ground. So if there's any competition from weeds, that will upset the plants. So make sure that you weed carefully around the base of the plants. And any foliage from neighbouring plants that starts to flop in, just make sure that you clear it away so that the plant has got its own little hot spot, if you like, where it can get the maximum amount of light and air circulation around the foliage. Other than that, it's pretty much leave it to it. Other than in the autumn and again in the spring, I like to add a little bit of this well-rotted garden or bagged compost as a mulch around the base of the plant. So just hold any foliage up out of the way and carefully put around about 2 centimetres mulch just immediately around the base of the plant, because the worms will take that into the soil to enrich the soil and help feed the plant. It will also help to retain moisture during the summer, because lupins don't like drying out completely in the summer, and it will also help to keep the weeds down immediately around the plant. So mulch that perhaps once in the autumn. You could do it again in the spring if you've got some spare mulch to hand, and your lupins will grow healthy and strong. So this lupin will bulk up and grow and be really happy for perhaps 4 or 5 years, but don't expect your lupins to last forever. So that means that you've got a real excuse to go out and buy more of these lovely things every so often. I'm going to try and find room in the border for this lovely pink one. Other than that, just sit back and enjoy their beauty.